Clara Chen believed in two things: hard work and results. A 30-year business student and summer intern at the prestigious tech conglomerate Viridian Dynamics, she was determined to make her mark. Her goal was not just to impress, but to dominate. She arrived at her cubicle every morning at 7 a.m., an hour before anyone else, and left at 7 p.m., long after the last of her peers had shuffled out the door. She was the definition of ambition, and she saw the world in a stark, meritocratic light. So when the new hire arrived, Clara's world was thrown into a state of bewildered irritation. The email from HR had been simple enough: "Please welcome our new corporate trainee, Amelia Vance, starting on Monday." Clara had imagined someone with the same fire and drive she possessed. Someone with a crisp blazer and an eager glint in their eye. Instead, a young woman with a perpetually tangled ponytail and a coffee-stained sweater ambled into the office on Tuesday morning. Amelia, it seemed, was allergic to promptness. From the first day, the issues began. Clara, assigned to mentor Amelia on the basics of their department's project management software, quickly found herself more of a babysitter. Amelia fumbled with the interface, asked basic questions Clara felt she should have known, and seemed to get distracted by everything from the office plant to a bird outside the window. While Clara was crunching data and compiling reports, Amelia was sketching in a small notebook and humming softly to herself. "Amelia," Clara said one afternoon, her voice tight with suppressed frustration, "are you done inputting the client data for Q2? Amelia looked up, a gentle, unfocused smile on her face. "Oh, almost. This software is a little different than what I'm used to." "What's Q2 again? Is that, like the second quarter of the year?" Clara felt a vein in her forehead throb. "Yes, we've been over this. It's the second quarter. The second quarter. It's on the spreadsheet. The one I sent you 3 times. Amelia's eyes widened slightly in a way that seemed more genuinely curious than apologetic.
Right, got it.
"Sorry about that. I'm just trying to get a feel for the rhythm of things." The rhythm of things, Clara thought. The rhythm of this office was a relentless march toward productivity, a sprint to the finish line, and Amelia was strolling along, picking daisies. The more Clara saw, the more her initial frustration solidified into a righteous fury. It wasn't just that Amelia was slow. It was that she seemed to not care. She didn't stay late. She didn't arrive early. She took a full hour for lunch, and often wandered around the floor, chatting with people from different departments. It was an affront to everything Clara held sacred about corporate life. 2 weeks into Amelia's tenure, Clara decided she'd had enough. She had been tasked with a critical presentation for the senior management team, and a key piece of data she needed was missing from a file Amelia was supposed to have updated. Clara worked until midnight to find and fix the error, her anger fueling her late-night productivity. The next morning, she walked into her supervisor's office, a file of printouts clutched in her hand. "Mr. Evans," she began, her voice low and serious, "I need to speak to you about Amelia Vance." Mr. Evans, a kind man with a tired face, sighed. "What about her, Clara?" "She's not fit for this role," Clara stated, laying the printouts on his desk. "Look at this. This is a log of all her work. She's behind on every single assignment I've given her. She's missing data. She doesn't understand basic concepts. She's a liability." Mr. Evans picked up the papers, his brows furrowed. "I'm aware that she's on a bit of a learning curve. Clara, I appreciate you coming to me, but she's just getting adjusted. A learning curve. Clara scoffed, unable to contain her indignation. Mr. Evans, I've had to do half of her work for her. I spent all of last night fixing a data error that could have cost us the quarterly report. I'm a student, and I'm outperforming a full-time employee. The internship is about proving ourselves, and I've been doing just that. But how can I prove my worth when I am constantly cleaning up after someone who doesn't seem to care? Mr. Evans leaned back in his chair, his eyes fixed on Clara. Clara, I hear you. I understand your frustration. But there's a lot going on here that you don't fully understand. I need you to just trust me on this. Be patient with her. Give her a little more time. Clara left his office, her fists clenched in her pockets. Be patient. Her whole life was a testament to impatience. Her whole life was about pushing harder, moving faster. She couldn't be patient with mediocrity. She couldn't stand by and watch her hard work be undermined by someone who was clearly a mistake. A hiring fluke. A lazy person who somehow slipped through the cracks. She was not going to let a single person's incompetence ruin her career trajectory. She decided to go straight to the top. That afternoon, she sent an email to the CEO, a man named Marcus Vance. She had never met him, but his reputation preceded him. He was a visionary, a man who had built Viridian from a two-person startup into a global giant. He was ruthless in his pursuit of excellence, and Clara was certain he would appreciate her kindness. Her email was polite but firm, outlining Amelia's perceived deficiencies and highlighting the potential risks to their projects. She ended it with a passionate plea for accountability, a plea she was sure would resonate with a man of his stature. She felt a surge of adrenaline and vindication as she pressed send. The next morning, Clara was called to a meeting. The invitation, sent by the CEO's executive assistant, was brief and to the point. Meeting with Mr. Vance and Mr. Evans at 9:00 a.m., Clara felt a thrill of anticipation. She had been right. Her hard work had been noticed. Her initiative had paid off. Marcus Vance was going to see her as a valuable asset, someone with the kind of drive his company was built on. She practiced her talking points in the elevator, a confident smile on her face. The CEO's office was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city skyline. Marcus Vance himself sat behind a sleek, minimalist desk, a man with a shock of silver hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. Mr. Evans was already there, his face a mask of weary concern. And then, the door opened, and Amelia Vance walked in. Clara's heart seized in her chest. She looked from Amelia to Mr. Evans, then back to Marcus Vance, who was gesturing for Amelia to take a seat. The name, Vance. It was a common enough surname, but the coincidence was too jarring to ignore. Marcus Vance smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Clara, he said, his voice a low rumble, thank you for coming, and thank you for your email. You've raised some very pertinent points. He gestured to a chair opposite him. Please sit. Clara felt a sudden, profound chill. Her carefully rehearsed speech evaporated from her mind. She sat, her palms sweating, and stared at Amelia, who met her gaze with that same calm, placid expression. Amelia has told me a little bit about your dynamic. Marcus Vance continued, his eyes shifting between the two young women. She told me you're an incredibly hard worker, that you're smart, ambitious, and driven. She speaks very highly of you. Clara's throat felt dry. She couldn't form a response. The room was silent, except for the low hum of the air conditioning. Marcus Vance finally turned to Amelia. "Amelia," he said, his tone softening imperceptibly, "what is your take on this? On the queue to data, on the data entry, on the learning curve?" Amelia finally spoke, her voice clear and measured, completely different from the gentle, distracted tones Clara had become used to. "Well, Dad," she began, and Clara's world tilted on its axis. The queue to data was an issue, but it wasn't because it was missing. It was because the formulas in the master spreadsheet were off. The pivot tables were pulling the wrong data. IVA been running tests on the whole system for the last week, and IVA found a dozen similar errors. It's a systemic issue, not a data entry error. Clara felt a wave of nausea wash over her. Dad, the coffee-stained sweater, the tangled hair, the fumbling with basic software. It had all been an act. A charade. Amelia Vance, the seemingly incompetent new hire, was Marcus Vance's daughter, the heiress to Viridian Dynamics, and the learning curve. Marcus Vance prompted. "That's my fault," Amelia said, a hint of a smile touching her lips. "I asked the HR team to put me on the ground floor with no prior information given to anyone. No special treatment. I've spent the last 2 weeks getting to know the departments, the people, and the processes. My goal was to see the company from the bottom up, without any filters. I needed to see what real problems existed, what the day-to-day was like, and how people responded to what they perceived as a challenge." She looked directly at Clara, her eyes now sharp and intelligent. "I wanted to see who would step up and who would simply complain." The silence that followed was deafening. Clara felt a profound, mortifying wave of shame. Her carefully constructed worldview, her firm belief in her own righteous indignation, crumbled around her. She had been so consumed by her own ambition, by her rigid ideas of how things should be, that she had completely missed the larger picture. She hadn't seen a colleague. She had seen an obstacle. She hadn't seen a person. She had seen a problem to be solved. And in her rush to solve that problem, she had made a colossal error in judgment. "Clara," Marcus Vance said, his voice now entirely serious. "You are a bright young woman. I've seen your file. Your grades are impeccable. Your work ethic is second to none. Your initiative is commendable, but your judgment is a serious flaw. You saw a problem, and you immediately assumed the worst. You jumped to conclusions. You went over your supervisor's head, and you sent a formal complaint to the CEO about my daughter, a woman who, in 2 weeks, has uncovered a systemic issue in our data processing that has been costing us millions." Clara couldn't speak. She just sat there, her face burning, her carefully constructed image of herself as the perfect intern in ruins. Amelia leaned forward. "It's okay, Clara. It was a test, in a way. Not for me, but for you. I wanted to see how the team would react. I saw your dedication, your drive. You were the first person to come to me, to try and help. But you were also the first to give up. You were so quick to judgment that you didn't try to understand. You just saw a problem and tried to eliminate it." "I'm sorry," Clara finally managed to whisper. The words felt hollow and inadequate. Marcus Vance stood up, ending the meeting. "We'll be fixing the data issues, and your help has been insightful, Clara. We'll be in touch regarding the rest of your internship." Clara left the office in a daze. She felt a profound sense of loss, not of a job or a career, but of her own self-confidence. The certainty she had lived with her entire life was gone. She was no longer the infallible, ambitious intern. She was just a young woman who had made a huge mistake. The rest of the week was a blur. She kept her head down, worked quietly, and didn't speak to anyone. She saw Amelia a few times, but Amelia was now an enigma. No longer a clumsy new hire, but a powerful, observant figure moving through the halls with purpose. On Friday, an email arrived in her inbox. It was from Marcus Vance. Clara's stomach clenched. She was sure it was her termination notice. She opened it, her hands trembling. The subject line read, "An opportunity." The email was short. "Clara, while your actions this week have been misguided, they have also shown a certain fire that I admire. However, it is not enough to be driven. You must be driven by the right motives. I want to offer you an opportunity, a chance to learn that lesson. Starting Monday, you will be reporting directly to my daughter, Amelia. She will be leading a new team focused on internal process optimization. It's an opportunity for you to learn from a different kind of leader, a leader who understands that sometimes, the most valuable lessons are not found in the numbers on a spreadsheet, but in the people who are trying to make sense of them. I hope you will accept." Clara stared at the screen, her mind reeling. She wasn't fired. She was being given a second chance. A chance to work with the very person she had complained about. She thought about Amelia, the woman who had seen her at her worst, at her most judgmental, and had still spoken highly of her. The woman who had given her a chance to prove herself again, but this time, not by being the fastest or the most efficient, but by being the most understanding. Clara responded to the email immediately. "I accept," she wrote, "and thank you." The next morning, she walked into the office, not an hour early, but right on time. She saw Amelia at a desk near the back of the office, sketching in her notebook. Clara walked over, her heart pounding. "Amelia," she said, her voice softer than she had ever heard it. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry, for everything." Amelia looked up, and for the first time, her smile reached her eyes. "It's okay, Clara. We've all been there. We all think we know what success looks like until we realize it's something else entirely. Let's get to work." And as Clara sat down at her new desk, she knew that this was the real start of her career. Not the start of a journey toward a corner office, but the start of a journey toward becoming a better person. It was the start of a journey toward understanding that true power wasn't in having all the answers, but in being willing to admit when you didn't, and that some of the most important lessons in life were learned not from being at the top, but from being at the bottom, looking up and realizing that the people around you were not just obstacles, but allies, and that a truly great leader was not the one who stood above everyone, but the one who stood with them.